What do you see when you look at these photographs? Do you see youthful bliss? Do you see a beautiful sunset? Or do you see a representation of poverty-stricken India? I would urge you to take a look closer, for these photographs hide much more than they reveal. Do you see the circular magnets tied to the end of the rope? These boys are throwing it out into the river to fish out these coins that were offered as offerings to the Almighty. Look at the smile on his face, but also look at the clay in his fingers and his cheeks. Those are from an entire morning of scavenging river mud that he would later sell to pilgrims for their ritualistic offerings. This young kid here, who I'm not going to name for obvious reasons, is seen celebrating Rath Yatra, a Hindu festival. He lives by the river, along the river shores, in a makeshift house, and his entire family, including himself, are refugees or immigrants from the neighboring state. These are some of my earliest memories by the river, a reflection of my own childhood. Growing up along the shores of the river Hooghly, the westernmost distributary of the river Ganga in North Kolkata, I stood witness to the innate bond of spirituality that the river shared with her inhabitants. Ganga is considered a mother deity, the harbinger of life, a cradle of civilization. I've seen people taking bath in it. I've seen fishermen going out against the current at daybreak. I've seen about 1,000 idols being immersed in its waters, and I've seen about 1 million pilgrims perform last rites along its shores. The amount of information and emotion that I received from the river completely deluged me, and I did not know I wanted to capture everything that I see. And soon the river became the central character to the story of my life. After almost 9 years of documentation, the Ganga had turned into a living archive, a repository of human experiences and faith. But when I look back at these moments, at the photographs that I just showed you, I remember them quite differently. I never ever wanted to capture any such intricate complexities. I was just fond of people and sunsets. I was looking at a part of the story, a smaller chunk of the larger whole, a part that connected with me. You see, photography has its own set of beautiful limitations. The Victorian instrument of documentation, the camera that was supposed to capture reality as it is, to document the scientific ultimate truth, failed in its essence. And you ask me why? Because of the presence of the photographer. The very moment or the very act of framing a scene is exclusionary. Because the boundaries that you set on your audience makes them devoid of any other sensory experiences that lie other or apart from the realm of reality that you have just represented, and that leads to a key component called artistic intent. Artistic intent is a set of choices, both conscious and unconscious, that a photographer makes, be it from framing or from editing, that influence the way that their viewers perceive their images to be. But I mean it when I say this, that with great artistic intent comes great artistic responsibility. We trust historical photographs to be our reference points in time. But in colonial India, photography came about as a tool for classification, divide, and otherization. The imperialist photographers with their big box cameras sought to develop this archive of India that was marked with their colonial gaze. And these visual histories, they disturb you. They urge you to think more about the ethics of attention. They urge you to think more about what the archive of the future would look like, and then instigate in you a development of a moral compass in your mind. The more I thought about this stream of consciousness, I looked back at my documentation of the river and wondered, what am I missing out on? What am I so blissfully ignorant about? You see, a river as majestic and culturally important as the Ganga deludes you from her misery because the politics of attention is oriented towards the celebration of faith and religion. And then, slowly, when you get out of your comfort zone and you shift your gaze from the predominant narratives, you're exposed to the latent realities that lie undocumented previously. And so I set sail, and I reached Malda, 350 kilometers upstream from my home, where the river is considered or feared as an entity of damnation. Laying in front of me were the fertile alluvial floodplains of the Ganga, stricken with misery and stripped off of its identity through a set of environmental marginalization, systematic oppression, and hydrocolonialism imposed through the construction of the Farakka barrage. About 700,000 environmental refugees lay stranded between geopolitical borders and constantly shift within the ephemeral play of land and water inside these riverine islands. Amidst all the rubble, amidst all the destruction, I chanced upon this young boy from Narayanpur, and in a flash, it took me back to my youthful escapades by the river. But I stood there, looking at him and thinking, how can a child's face be so devoid of emotions? His entire body was marked with blotches of water, dried in the scorching summer heat, forming these grayish patterns that horrify you, that unsettle you. His entire family was broken, and all his faith towards the river was lost in a sea of hopelessness. I would still often ponder, how could this boy ever worship the river, for all the river has ever done is take everything away from him? How does his faith and his religion act in this context? Some years later, and just a month back, I found myself exploring these questions inside the grandeur of the Mahakumbh, one of the largest gatherings of humanity on this planet. There, I sought to understand, how does one find their spiritual calling in an ocean full of pilgrims? There was much to observe at the Mela, but once you shifted your gaze from the VIPs, the VVIPs, and the Naga sadhus towards the commoners, you realized how distinct and different each man's journey to their heavenly abode is. Faith in our time is a culmination of the social, the political, and the ecological. It is not blind, but conditional. I am no stranger to Ganga and her spiritual connections. I have lived with its rhythm. I have swayed with its sacred flow. I have immersed myself in its rituals. Yet, the act of walking, bathing, eating with a million other pilgrims had humbled me. And for all the reasons, good and bad, I am eternally grateful. Perhaps the most profound practice as a photographer, I've come to realize, is to look back in time and go through your memory gallery and pick out on those moments that you let slip away, the photos that you chose not to take, or the experiences that your camera failed to comprehend. As the character of Walter Mitty would say in one of our favorite movies, if I like a moment, I mean me, personally, I don't like to have the distraction of the camera. I remember 100 drums reverberating through the valleys of Meghalaya as the Garo tribe celebrated their sun god Saljong. I was too dazed, and I still get goosebumps thinking about how synchronous they were with nature. I remember the Mukhya, the head of the Ramnami sect, holding my hands as he sung this beautiful Ram Bhajan, a devotional song to me, looking me right into the eyes. And I was too loved to let go of his hand and grab my camera. I remember floating through the open waters of the Sundarbans, the largest mangrove delta in the entire world, late at night, afraid that a Royal Bengal tiger might just sneak up on me, and then slowly placing my hand inside the warm tidal current. And it's starting to glow this bright fluorescent green. The bioluminescence, no matter how hard I tried to focus on, I could not capture. But I've realized that these are experiences that are enabled by my photographic escapades. And I slowly close my eyes at times, go back to these moments and think, this is the story of my life. This is just how it was supposed to be. It was probably a part of my predestiny. That rhymed. But who am I to say? I have just lived 23 years. Standing in front of me lies the soaring legacy of my father, whom I used to call my Baba. For him, this existential philosophical medium called photography was merely a means of connection. In the 40 years that he documented the world around, he paid his respect to all things living and breathing. And he would tell me, remember, when you enter a jungle, you might see no one, but 1,000 eyes see you. So be careful and respect that. He taught me how to find beauty in the mundane, how to speak to the natural elements, and I was fortunate to have him by my side in some of my most incredible assignments. But he was a tough dad, like any other. I remember this one time when we spotted the spectacled cobra in a desert, perched on a thorn bush after its fight with a mongoose, how he was literally pushing me towards the snake, getting me to manually focus on its dead-shot eyes. My legs had turned to jelly, and I was so angry at him. But I've just come to realize a couple of days back that as he was holding onto my shoulders and he was pushing me towards the snake, he was also holding me back. He was protecting me. I mean, those were the times. Now, with him gone, I have lost that strength and support, but for all I know, the moment I keep my eye on the viewfinder, or the moment I wear this jacket of his, all the memories keep coming right back to me. All his teachings, his tricks of the trade, just come back, and the moral compass in my head keeps pointing to the right directions. I've been working with his archive with thousands and thousands of negatives, prints, films from his collection. Yet, whenever I talk to someone who knew him, some of his contemporaries, they would seldom talk about his work. They would rather talk about how he used to narrate his experiences in the wild, the undocumented sagas, stories of his interactions with the people, the flora, and the fauna of India. You see, I might just be a little too young to talk about legacy, but this is just how I envision my legacy to look like. And why just my legacy? The legacy of an artist, the legacy of a professional from any field whatsoever. We have to have that human connect. We have to have that nature connect. You know, I've been thinking that we perceive photography to show us the world around, but in its essence, they are like mirrors, photographs, reflecting the ones holding the camera. And you, as a photographer, are never, ever invisible. Each and every time you capture a moment, you put your agency on it to be your own. You create a legacy and then you treat it with your biases and your jurisdictions. So the next time you scroll through your gallery of memories, take some time to look at the images that you chose not to take, the moments that you let slip away. That was your artistic intent, and that was meant to be. And who knows, in this process, you might just rediscover a part of your legacy. Thank you.